Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the Magic Morning Wood. Hey, I'm ootin' about all by myself, eh? Yeah, so everybody, this is my name is Ron, and welcome to the Magic Morning Wood. This is my first solo outing. Clive is indisposed at the moment and is unable to record. So I thought I'd take this as my opportunity to make my first solo show. And so here we are in honor of Canada Day, being from Canada. I thought we do a special episode for Canada Day. Clive and I had actually already intended on doing a special Canada Day episode with our friend Nick, who actually lives in Canada. But of course, shit happens and life gets in the way. So I thought I'd do this one as a sort of a place filler, and then we can maybe get to that one as a part 2 Canada Day special like that. So yeah, so I'm ootin' about in the wood by myself, eh? So yeah, hey, how's it going, hosers? Welcome to Canada Day. Maybe on a sort of serious note, I should mention that I guess if this is in honor of Canada Day, it's bears mentioning that if you've been listening to the news these days, Canada's not doing so well in terms of reputation. And if you haven't heard, they found several, almost more than 100, I believe, dead children buried dead Indigenous children buried at residential schools all across Canada, schools that were run by the Catholic Church, and they were basically Indigenous children torn from their families and forced to go to the school, and then they were abused and sexually and emotionally and physically and neglected, and most of them starved or died, and then they just buried them in the grounds, and they've just been unearthing the body. So seems sort of an inauspicious time to be celebrating Canada. But anyway, I just wanted to bear mentioning that despite my celebration here of Canada and Canada culture, it bears mentioning that that there's shit happening right now. So I did want to mention that, and so please, if you haven't heard about this, please educate yourself about this. So anyway, so yeah, so I thought I'd just do for my solo show, just because it's just me, I thought I'd do a quick one-off on just one movie. And I had a couple options, of course, doing a Canadian movie, and I had a couple options. I was going to do a movie called Slashers from 2001, where I actually was friends with the main actress of that, and I thought that would be a cool one to talk about. Unfortunately, I could not get a copy of it. It's just so independent and forgotten that I found a copy, but there's no it would download, and so I wasn't able to get it. So I instead went for a little bit of a search through the internet, and decided to search for what is the best Canadian horror movie, best Canadian horror movies. And many came up, but the one that came up as one of the most popular, or arguably the best Canadian horror movie ever made, was the 1975 movie Shivers, made by David Cronenberg, Canadian, basically the main proprietor of horror from Canada, I guess you could say. So David Cronenberg, written and directed by David Cronenberg, and actually his first film. So of course, David Cronenberg is, famous for lots of horror movies and other things, The Fly, Dead Ringers, Crash, things like that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And is quite prolific in Canadian, and also very proud of his Canadian culture and Canadian heritage. Does lots of movies, both set and shot in Canada, including this one, right? And so this was his very, very first movie he ever wrote and directed. And it is, I'd never seen it before. It was my first time to watch this, so I'd been interested in watching it anyway. So I decided to throw it on and chat about it. And wow, I was quite pleasantly surprised. I really, for a first film, especially an independent Canadian movie, you don't really expect much, but it was, it was quite a good watch. Just because Clive isn't here in person doesn't mean he can't be here in person. So I thought I would read his review from his book. Just a little plug for his book. It's called Spine Grinder, Movies Most Critics Won't Write About. And so Clive actually wrote about Shivers, and this is what he had to say. So Cronenberg's classic feature debut remains one of his finest and was definitely ahead of its time. A scientifically engineered parasite, half aphrodisiac, half venereal disease, infects residents in a luxury apartment block. When the parasite, which looks like a turd, enters the victim, they develop an insatiable, violent urge to fuck. It's violent, but features less sex and nudity than you might expect from the subject matter. Cronenberg's clinical dissection of the concept is intelligent and follows through to its logical conclusion, and it's first-class exploitation cinema too, with Lynn Lowry from I Drink Your Blood, Barbara Steele, Joe Silver, and Vlasta Varana. The somewhat similar in concept Rabid was next. So yeah, so the David Cronenberg made Rabid, the next one, Rabid, not Rapid or Rabid, Rabid. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So Clive was a fan of this movie. He enjoyed it, and yeah, I was too bad I wasn't able to talk to him about it in person. I'm sure I will in the future. But yeah, it's what a great concept. You know, basically sex zombies. What an idea, right? So I'm really surprised this idea hasn't been exploited more. Probably has been exploited in the porn circles, in the porn world. I've mentioned on the podcast in the past that I'm not a huge fan of watching porn movies for story, and so it may have just escaped my notice. But yeah, what an idea! I mean, you think about zombie movies. I'm a big fan of zombie movies. Zombie movies generally are, you know, zombies like the dead, or at least brainless or mindless, and they want to eat other people. So just replace eat with fuck, and there you go. You got a whole new genre, right? So it's yeah, it was really fun. Yeah. So basically, yeah, and added in Cronenberg's kind of disgustingness. He's kind of famous for being kind of really gross and really like physical and really good special effects and stuff like that. So he yeah, it started out with this one. Of course, it was very kind of independent and low budget, but so it's basic summary. It's set in Montreal, Canada, on a small island off the coast of Montreal. It says it's the movie begins with a like a mock commercial for this apartment block on an island just off the coast of Montreal in the St. Lawrence River, and it says it's 12 and a half minutes from downtown Montreal. But it's sort of an isolated little island, and but it's a sort of very luxury apartment, very high, high class, and people, desirable place to live. And it's talking about all the benefits and things you can do there. It's like basically a commercial, or an advertisement for it. And yeah, and so then it goes to there, and it shows the various people in there, and it's a very kind of self-sufficient apartment block. So because it's sort of isolated, they've got their own hospital and their own restaurant and things like that. So people live there, choose to live there, and they've got their own little community there. But as it progresses, there's the main character is the doctor at the clinic there, Roger St. Luc, played by Paul Hampton, and he is a doctor, and he talks with like a professor, a medical professor named Rollo Linsky, played by Joe Silver, and he's dating his nurse, played by Lynn Lowry, who plays Nurse Forsyth. Anyway, the movie begins with sort of a young woman dressed as sort of a schoolgirl in her apartment, and this older guy, kind of breaks in and kind of sexually attacks her and kind of strangles her to death in this quite visceral scene, and then begins to like sort of cut her open and dissect her on the table, and then takes the scalpel to his own neck and kills himself. He's sort of like half addressed. So there's some sort of like sex ritual thing going on here. You're not quite sure what's happening, but it's quite draws you in. And yeah, and then after that, it gradually unfolds that they've got that this old guy was a professor doctor who had this great idea to create a parasite. That's a parasite that is like a beneficial parasite meant to replace an organ that doesn't work. So if someone has like a liver or something that doesn't work, they put the parasite in. The parasite will do the work for the liver without having a liver. I think the science behind that is probably pretty suspect, but hey, it's science fiction, right? So anyway, so and I guess what's happened is that he's made this parasite, and and anyway, and then it is eventually revealed that actually he was that was the original idea, but he actually also wanted it to create to inspire people's libidos and to create sexual feelings and stuff like that. But I think probably the idea is it got out of control, obviously, and then it's so, and this young woman who he was attacking at the beginning was his sort of his maybe girlfriend, like a student he had that he was kind of fooling around with, and he was using her as the guinea pig for this parasite. So she had the parasite in her, and I think he was trying to cut it out of her, and then it got into him and stuff. So eventually you start seeing the parasite as it kind of makes its way to the apartment block, and as Clive says, it looks like a turd. Most other places say it looks like a phallus, looks like a penis, which it looks sort of like a poop penis, I guess you could say that, poopiness. Anyway, and yeah, and so it kind of crawls like a little kind of like alien, and I guess the story is that it was possibly the inspiration for the alien in the movie Alien as well. So so it's very kind of this little like gross little blood splattered creature that kind of crawls through people's mailboxes and mail slots and then get into them, and then basically just crawls in some orifice anywhere and then infects them. And then you've got these like little like bumps coming out of their stomach, where it's basically you can see it in their stomach, and it's kind of pushing and kind of makes them go crazy, and then they sexually attack other people. You know, it makes them want to rape them, and as soon as they have any kind of sexual contact with them, even just kissing, then that person is also infected, and then it's so on and so on. Like basically the zombie idea, but with sex instead of eating. Instead of eating them and turning them into zombies, you kiss them or fuck them, and then they turn into zombies. So it's kind of a great idea, I think so. And yeah, I thought it was quite fun. It was great, good fun to watch, and yeah, it was quite well done. I mean, for a first movie, and I guess he was still learning how to direct at the time. He was, you know, I have to say, I'm quite impressed. The tension was there. It kept my interest. Movies sometimes around this time period can get kind of slow, and I kind of drift off or lose interest. But this one kept my interest all the way through. So, and the soundtrack was quite good. It was very kind of, you know, really kind of kept your interest, and really you could tell when something was happening. I even was watching with subtitles, and the subtitles would say things like, you know, discordant music plays, or tense music starts to play. No, like it's actually telling you the kind of music. So yeah, but the music was quite done effectively, and that's a big problem with these type of independent first movies, is the music is often terrible and takes you out of it, which we'll talk about when we get to the other Canadian movies, which Clive and I were going to talk about. And yeah, the plot was quite good, kept moving along. It was, well done. The one qualm, I mean, of course, the acting was, so-so, as you would expect from an independent movie in Canada in 1975. Or 1976 or 1982, whatever Clive thinks this is from. But anyway, it says it is 75. And but the most of the acting was kind of meh. It was kind of okay, but the person I had the most problem with, I think, was the main actor, Paul Hampton. He had this real weird acting style, which was really strange for me to watch. He had this idea where he was, I guess he's originally a musician. I don't really know much about him, but I guess he was also a musician. So he was a sometime actor as well, but he had this real, he was really trying for this real kind of naturalistic, very kind of laid back, relaxed style. Like every scene he's in, he's sort of like, hey, how's it going? I'm this real relaxed, laid back, casual guy, right? But he has this, it was almost inappropriate most of the time. Well, first of all, he's a doctor, and he's in the middle of this sort of pandemic, or like this, zombie apocalypse. And yet he's just sort of like, he's just sort of like, hey, how's it going? And every line he delivers, he mumbles, because he's like, no, how's it going? oh yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I'm a doctor. It's just like fucking just speak up, man. You know what I mean? So I mean, his casualness kind of started grating on me because it was to the point where it became just too like relaxed. I was like, and also once the all the zombies started attacking, and of course it climaxes to basically everyone in the whole apartment building is has been affected except him. He's the last guy, and he tries to escape from the apartment building, and they all start crowding around him, and then they're like all and tries goes up this hill, and there's like this everywhere he goes, there's another person that's infected. They're all trying to fence him in and force it back into the pool where they're gonna have this kind of big orgy and climax. It's a pun intended. And but he and even still, he's just kind of like, hey. He never has the like the urgency or the immediacy that you want from a person who basically, is in peril. So yeah, that kind of I was a little disappointed with him, his performance or whatever. But everybody else, despite being kind of independent and sort of not professional actors, were quite good. There's some real fun parts, like they've got some like old people. You wouldn't think with like sex when it's kind of sex related things that you put like old people. They've got like these grandmas and this really old couple, and they're like walking around with their cane, and one of the guys who's infected, he kind of spits over the usually when you're infected, you'd spit blood. There's lots of like spitting blood and stuff. So he spits blood off the balcony and hits her like umbrella, and so the big splat of blood and stuff. And then it kind of the creature kind of crawls on the old lady's arm and makes her sexually. So it's kind of funny to do that. And then there's this real kind of like kind of large woman doing her laundry, and it jumps out of the washing machine into her mouth and stuff, and it makes her go like, "I'm hungry for love." It's very kind of funny. Anyway, so it was even though it could have been like there's parts that were quite campy, and it could have been really ridiculous and stupid, but it actually it worked surprisingly. So kudos to David Cronenberg for good first feature. Anything else to say about this? There's another character actor named Alan Coleman, who played Nicholas Tudor, and he's kind of one of the first people to be infected, and he's quite well. He actually reminded me of my friend Dave Brennan. He looks very close to my friend Dave Brennan, so that's what I kept thinking of when I was watching it. But he had been another boyfriend of the girl in the first scene, in the schoolgirl outfit, and so he got it from her, and so he sort of had this. He had kind of the best performance, I think, where he was sort of communicating with the bulges in his stomach and the creature and stuff. He seemed to really enjoy what he was doing and stuff. And he was the one that spit off the balcony. There's also a Barbara Steele who played Alan Coleman, Nicholas Tudor, that character. He had a wife, and he's very kind of distant from his wife because he's obviously cheating on her. But the wife has a friend. Barbara Steele played Betts, who's a lesbian. And then there's of course a kind of a lesbian scene as well, where they kind of Betts is having a bath, and the creature crawls up through the drain, and you can see it kind of crawling up to her, and it's implied that it crawls in her vagina and stuff, and then she gets it, and then she comes on to the wife later on, and they've had like kind of almost a lesbian scene, and of course then it becomes orgy-ish. So yeah, it was fun, and I was surprised that there wasn't as much, as Clive said in his review, that there wasn't as much nudity as you expect from basically sex zombies. There was some topless women, but for the most part there was nothing below the waist. So, but it was all sort of implied, and so I thought it was kind of good, and wasn't too much like boring sex stuff. It was just sort of listen to me, I'm sure Clive would laugh at me when I say this, but I get bored. People just making, oh, okay, it's another sex scene. Okay, let's go, right? So, but yeah, there wasn't too much of that. So it was not great to be to the meat of the thing. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, I'll keep this short and sweet today. So just for my first one off. But yeah, I just want to say I enjoyed Shivers. A couple of things also about Shivers, that it was not the original title. The original title was They Came From Within, also known as The Parasite Murders. They Came From Within actually seems like a much better title, I think. I don't know why he decided on Shivers, but so yeah, but Shivers was the title it went out under, and it was a nice, easy watch. It was an hour 27 minutes, actually, I would have just called it Sex Zombies because I think that's more fun. Yeah, so maybe if Clive has something to say about Shivers, he can tack it on to the end here, or we can mention it briefly in our next viewing when we're meeting to talk about other Canadian movies for Canada Part 2. But yeah, so thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you again soon.